Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from my favorite things. I use the Happy Everything, the Itty Bitty Birthdays, the balloon stacks, and the cloud stencil. We're going to talk about the technique for how we can get a super smooth gradient, custom colored vellum. You could also not do a gradient, you could just do one color, but I chose, because I like a lot of variety, kind of a rainbow of colors. And then we're going to talk about some industry things. So stay tuned for that. So in doing this, I've showed this in another video, but it was part of a lot of other techniques we were doing. And I felt like it was worth doing a video on its own. Because if you guys have watched my channel, you know that like for a long time, I didn't even buy colored cardstock. I didn't buy pattern paper. Like I always made my own because it was something that I could do with inks that was cheaper. And so being able to make custom colored vellum is no different for me. And the best way that I found to do that is exactly what you're seeing here, is using distress oxides. And because they have those pigment properties, they stick really nicely to this vellum. I used, my vellum is from, I want to say Hero Arts. But honestly, I've used Altenew. Like I just kind of mix them up. But just try what you have. And if that doesn't work, then maybe invest in something else. And then using the paper pouncers. These paper pouncers are from Picket Fence Studios, and I found kind of like a pounce and twist, a little twist, not a big twist. We're not trying to damage our pouncers. Was the best way to get the color onto the vellums kind of seamlessly. But you could also maybe try sponge daubers or maybe like makeup sponges. I don't know how that would work, but these work really well. They come in a large size or a pint size, depending upon what size paper you're doing. I knew I was going to be doing lots of die cutting, so I went with the large size. But you do want to make sure that if you have a set that you're using with oxides, that you use them with oxides and not distress ink, because you will contaminate your ink pads if you switch back and forth. If you want a set for oxides, then you would need to get another set for regular distress inks. I have 2 sets. So here, I'm doing a gradient, right? And I picked spiced marmalade, but it actually looked almost exactly like mustard seed once I put it on the vellum. So I'm thinking maybe a carved pumpkin or a ripe persimmon, something else in the future. But basically the trick is, so you want to kind of stamp it down and kind of twist it just a little, like stamp and twist, a little pounce and twist. But really, in order to get the colors to blend, you need to go back over the seam, like the places where they're meeting, with the previous color's pouncer. So does that mean that your pouncers may get a little contaminated with the other color? Yes. I haven't noticed it being an issue for me using them and transferring color, but that is kind of the best way to blend them, because you can see here with like the wilted violet and the picked raspberry, there's a pretty strong line of demarcation. They're not really blending. But going back in with the pink, the picked raspberry does help them to blend a bit more. Here, I'm kind of trying to create my own orange by bringing my pink up a little higher into that spiced marmalade, and then again going back over that edge. Some other things to note, if you touch it with your fingers, you will leave a fingerprint and you will be able to see it. So I kind of hold mine with my fingernail. If you don't have like longer nails to do that with, you may want to use maybe like a pick tool or a pair of tweezers, like just the edge. You just need something to kind of hold it in place. I even tried like the trick I use with distress inks of putting tape on my fingers. It still left a mark. You don't want that. The other thing to keep in mind is you want to make sure that before you start doing anything with these, you let them completely dry. So I used a heat tool. You'll see that here in just a little bit. But with the heat tool, because vellum is very finicky, you have to make sure that you're using a heavyweight vellum if you're going to heat it. And you also have to make sure that you're keeping that heat gun moving. We don't want any concentrated heat on any one section, or you will start to crinkle your vellum. It'll start to like melt because it's not paper. It's more of a plastic material. So otherwise, do them the night before. Like if you're going to be doing a bunch of die cutting, just do all of this inking portion the night before, let them dry overnight. And when you come back the next morning, they should be good and dry and you shouldn't have any issues. I hold them with my finger as long as I can, just till I get to that bottom little corner. And then from there, like I said, I switch to just the edge of my fingernail. But it gives beautiful results, really nice, gradients. So here is me heating them, keeping the heat gun far away, keeping it constantly moving. So that way I'm not melting anything, I'm not warping anything. And this is just to make sure that I'm not going to have any color transferring when I go to die cut them. So now that we have everything good and nice and dry, here's a look at all of the dried backgrounds. You can use either the back or the front side because once it's dry, it's not going to come off on your hands. So from here, I'm going to start doing my die cutting. I'm using the balloon stacks for that. And I knew that I was going to be making a bunch of birthday cards. These are great for me to just have on hand. They're very general birthday cards. So if something comes up, like my son's invited to somebody's birthday party and all of a sudden we need a birthday card that would be for anybody, I kind of have them stashed away. Or like sometimes I use these ones because they're a bit simpler for like my brother-in-laws, if they're a bit, more on the color scheme's a bit more on the masculine side. So we're going to do 4 cards today. And again, you can use whatever you want. However, I will mention that my favorite things is having a Wednesday Blitz sale. I don't believe the stacks are included, but the Itty Bitty Birthdays is. Other thing to mention is the Happy Everything that I used, they actually don't sell anymore, but they do have a very similar one, which I will link below if you're interested in that. They also have a lot of things in their last chance section. They seem to kind of be being clearing house. So if there's anything that you love from them, maybe, check over there and see if you can get it on a discount. So the reason I swapped out that other one is because I'm going to use that one to make a shaker. So I want to actually cut the balloon out, not of my colored vellum, but out of white cardstock, because that's going to act as the cover, and then my vellum will act as my acetate. So that way I can have a nice little fun shaker card. We're going to work on some of the backgrounds here. This is just, whatever makes your heart happy. I did a little blue gradient and some kind of spatters. I did some clouds, as if my balloons were floating in the clouds. And then I did one that was more of like, I kind of think of like the angsty teenage card, because it's a little like shimmer spatter, black and white spatter. I could definitely see that being used for like a teenage girl or a teenage boy. But anywho, let's talk about some industry things. And these may be things that you have seen other places. And I think all of us, who work in this industry and who love this industry, I've always said that like crafty people and card makers are just the absolute best kind of people. And that is true for 99% of them, right? But there's always, in any profession or any hobby or any whatever, any grouping of people, there's always like that 1%, right? But one of the things that I want to talk about, and I have addressed it like on my page before in sharing things, but I don't know that we've ever had a full conversation about it. And that is our industry is hurting. It really is. And if you are somebody who loves the card making industry, the stamping industry, the makers that bring you things, the biggest problem that we have is theft. And being somebody who now illustrates, right? So I spend the time coming up with the ideas, drawing them up. It's a whole process. So, you have to come up with a concept. You have to then draw them. If you are a person who, like I was in the beginning, I would draw them in pencil and paper, and then I would have to convert them to digital. And then even once I converted them to digital and Procreate, I had to then convert them to what we call a vector file, which, isn't going to change based on any size that you make. And it has to be created to specific dimensions and there's all of this work that goes into it. And then from there, the stamp company who buys my illustrations, or if they're a company that illustrates their own, which is absolutely a thing. That's how most people get started, right? Then they have to take it from there, get the sizing and the spacing correct, do any sort of die building or stencils if they're going to do stencils to match that set, which we all know stencils are hot right now. We super love them, right? There's all of this work. And then there is this misconception about what is theft. So if you are purchasing off-brand stamps from a AliExpress, from a Alibaba, from a Wish, from Temu, you are purchasing items that have been stolen from their actual creators. Now, there are a lot of people who are like, hey, I can't afford to buy it from the actual company and I want it, so I'm going to buy it from these other people. And here's the thing, if you guys have watched my channel, you know that I'm very straightforward and I'm very transparent. And it's going to sound a little bit harsh, and I apologize for that, but there is no nice way to say it. You're not entitled to it. If you cannot afford something, then you save up your pennies, like the rest of us do, and you buy it when you can afford it. That is, you guys, if you've listened to my channel before, you guys know, like, I had a craft budget that was literally $25. $25 out of every one of my paychecks I set aside for stamping. And then, so each month was $50. And that's like one stamp set and one die, if I chose to buy the dies, which most of the time I didn't. I made do, right? I created a lot of one layer cards, things like that. So it's just, you're not entitled to it. It just because you want it doesn't mean that you're entitled to go buy it. And then there's a lot of people who are like, oh, these companies are making their dyes in China. China's not stealing them. They're giving them to them. And so since they're sending them over there to be made, it's their own fault they're getting, reproduced. Not true. Not true. There are some companies that produce their dyes in China, but there are a lot of companies that don't, that produce them in America and they still get stolen. Let's talk about what I'm doing right here. So here, I kind of lost my mind. And I forgot that I was adhering vellum. And so it wrinkled because, anytime you put adhesive down, you're going to be able to see it. So what I had been doing was using just little dots and kind of smearing it out. With that one, when I was adhering it to the white balloon, I kind of lost my mind and I definitely wrinkled it. But you guys also know that I think everything is fixable, so we're not going to give up on it. The reason why I am doing this and putting the white balloons behind after the fact is because I still want that transparency that the vellum offers, so that the colors will lay on top of each other and make new colors and like how balloons should look. However, I want to be able to pop them up. So the white cardstock balloon is giving me the opportunity to use some foam tape behind them without losing the transparency that I love from vellum. And I'm going to do this with this one, and then there's another card later on that I'm going to do that with as well. So, and then here you know what, I drew the lines with a black marker, and I have regrets about that. The other one I'm going to do with white, and that was much better. In order to mask my boo-boo for the adhesive, I am going to make it kind of like a confetti balloon. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like where they have all the confetti shaking around. So in order to do that, you can color on vellum with Copic markers, with alcohol markers, Sharpies, whatever you have. Probably not water-based. I don't think it'll stick, but alcohol markers will color pretty much anything. So I'm going to do just a series of dots to create some confetti, and this is going to help mask my little boo-boo with the glue. So if that happens to you and you really can see the adhesive and you don't like it, maybe try this. So anyway, let's go back to what we were talking about. So there are companies that don't send their dyes over to China to be made, and they're still being ripped off. I have seen my own stamp sets that I have spent time, creating from conception, being sold, and they take they take pictures from people's websites, and so it looks legitimate and it's not. And the reality is, even if you are a person who's like, okay, I don't care what you say. I don't care that it's unethical. I don't care that I'm ripping off companies that I love. I'm going to buy them anyway. It's still hit or miss for you because you don't actually know what you're going to get. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So yes, it is a little amount of money that you're spending, but you're still spending your hard-earned money to not even know what you're going to get. And there was a video that I saw, which was great. And it's not about the crafting industry, but it is about kind of fast fashion. And she buys this dress. I will link it below if you're interested in seeing it. She buys this dress from like 4 different places, including the legitimate one. And you can see all of the differences in the construction of the material, what the dress looks like, how it fits, all of these things, and whether or not you're actually getting your money's worth. And the thing is about, especially Temu, that people don't understand is 100% of the things stolen on Temu are stolen. If it's a purse, it's a knockoff. If it's a shirt, it's a knockoff. It's a stamp, it's a knockoff. And so why do we care, right? You're like, I want what I want. Why does it matter? Well, the reason why it matters is because if you do not spend your hard-earned dollars, this is just economics 101. If you don't spend your hard-earned dollars with companies that are creating the original content, Temu, Wish, AliExpress, all of the above, won't have anybody to steal from. And then the hobby that you love, with companies that you love, with images and illustrators that you love and enjoy, and what make this hobby so great, the community, will be gone. It will literally be gone because they won't have anybody to take it from. So while I know that this means maybe you have to spend a little bit more so that you can buy the original, it is going to ensure that you're putting money back into the economy of an industry that you love and that you want to support. Now, you guys know me. You know I'm a cheap chicken. I will do whatever I can to save $1, but not if it's going to put my ethics into question. So I have never purchased from any of those places, and I never will. I will always save up my pennies. And I understand that a lot of people are on, they're retired. They're on a limited budget. I mean, so are my parents and my in-laws. Like, I get it. I understand how difficult it is. But that doesn't mean that you can't save up your money that you've set aside for your hobby and buy it from the actual place. Because here is the thing that's happening. And maybe you've noticed it, and maybe it hasn't happened to one of your favorite companies yet. But they're closing, guys. Businesses are closing left and right in this industry because they can't make it. Because nobody is buying from the original retailer, and it's affecting their bottom line. So that means they can't employ the same amount of people that they could before. People that work for their companies, that have families to feed, that people that I know and that I love, that I'm friends with personally, are losing their jobs because of the decline in the industry. And a lot of that starts with where we're purchasing from. And I'm not telling you to be irresponsible with your money. I'm not saying go out there and spend, your whole Social Security check or, your money that you have, set aside on the industry. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want you to be destitute. Like, I want you to have food on your table. But I also want the companies that I love who are hustling to put out things that we love, that we use, that keep this industry and this hobby that we spend so much time with alive. I want them to have food on their table too. So maybe, and I've seen a lot of different videos and seen a lot of different comments, and I'm sure I'm going to get them on this video too. There'll be people who are saying that they don't care. They don't care where they buy it from. It's not really hurting anything. And that's just simply not true. That's maybe something that they're telling themselves so that they can feel better about themselves or better about the purchasing that they're making. But it, you are hurting the industry when you buy from those places. And sometimes people don't know. And I'm not talking about that. Like, if you don't know, you know, who said that? Maya Angelou, like, when you know better, you do better. So if you're listening to this, now you know better. So going forward, please make a conscientious effort, even if it's just like doing what I do and shopping sales. You know, if I want something, like, I share this stuff with you guys because that's what I do, you know. And when I got into this hobby and making my own like colored vellum, like we're doing here today, making my own pattern paper with background stamps. So investing into stamps instead of investing into pattern paper, which is consumable. But there are still sometimes that I buy pattern paper because I really like it. And I know I'm going to be able to get, you know, 3, 4, 5 cards out of it. Whatever it is that you're into, the only thing that I'm asking you is just to buy from the original. Like, find out where that, you know, the stamp or the stencil or the dyes are the big ones. I know dyes are expensive because they're expensive to produce, but they have completely changed the face of our industry, where when I came up, I was fussy cutting everything. And until I got to a place where I could afford dyes, I was still fussy cutting everything. And that's videos on this channel. So, I mean, and I've been making videos for what, 8 years, 9 years, something like that. And, you guys will see it here. Like, there are plenty of times that I don't have the dyes for items, and it's because I make a choice. Can I afford the dyes or can I not? And if I can't afford them from who originally made them, then I don't buy them because I'm not entitled to it. So I don't mean to come off as unempathetic. That's because I do understand everybody has a budget. Like I said, you guys have heard me say, you know, how I had to save up my pennies and I only shopped twice a year. I saved all my dollars. And I typically bought in the spring and in the fall, because spring was when everybody came out with their florals, and I love a floral. And then in the fall, everybody came out with their holiday stuff. That's kind of changed now. I think the holiday stuff is coming out earlier and earlier. But regardless, like, I beg of you, please do not let these companies go under, because we will be left with nothing to create with. And creating is mine, and probably yours if you're watching this video, like, happiest of places. My de-stressor, my place where I go. And you see, you know, everybody laughed at my comment in one of my more recent videos where I said, like, using craft supplies and collecting craft supplies are two different things. And they are. But because we have so many more large releases that are, like, driven by how many releases are coming out, and it's hard and it's overwhelming, and I understand that because I'm in the same place and having to make decisions about what I'm going to purchase. You have to, you just have to make good choices for yourself. And, you know, just all I'm asking is, please just pay attention to where you're purchasing from. And if you are on a budget, then, like I said, you know, you can shop sales. When companies give me discount codes, I always share those with you guys. I know how hard it is to make ends meet, but it is for the companies too. You know, they're not out here just like quick cash grab. I mean, I've known companies, owners that, like, they have only released their dyes within their own shop. Like, they had to do an exclusive release because to mark it up would be too expensive for what retailers would mark it up. And they just think it's unethical to sell them for that much. So they won't. They'll do them exclusively in their own shops. Like, these are people who really do, you know, care about their customers, and they're good people, and they need to support their families as well. So yeah, that's my PSA. Like I said, I'm sure there'll be some people in the comments who are like, "Nah, fam, I'm not interested." And there's going to be people in the comments who are probably going to unsubscribe where they haven't, where they have previously. The other thing is the videos. So Temu, I get an email from Temu at least 3 to 5 times a week asking me to do a collaboration with them. They're paid collaborations, guys. It's not only share it if you love it, like a lot of the collaborations are in the industry. It's a paid collaboration. They're being paid to tell you, go shop at Temu or look at all this stuff I bought at Temu. This is my Temu haul. By watching those videos and making those videos popular, it's also contributing because then you have I hate the word influencers, but I guess in some regard that is what it is. You have creators who will then see that that's getting them a lot of foot traffic, and then they will continue to collaborate with Temu. There's a whole lot of other things about like information stealing that's very well documented. I'm not going to go into that just because I don't have all of the information. And I don't want to talk to you from a point of ignorance. What I do know is what is happening in the industry. And so I'm sharing that with you. So this, I really did not, I guess I feel very passionately about it, is why it was such a long kind of talk. And I usually try to keep things, pretty light, share my family, share my, my life experiences with you guys, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And this is something that's just been going on for a really long time. And like I said, you've probably heard me kind of mention it in passing, or if you follow my Facebook or my Instagram, you would have seen me share it. But it's been long overdue to just address it. So anywho, these are all of the cards, which I love the way all of them came out. The colored vellum holds up really well, as you can see. So I added some baubles from Trinity. That's also what I did the shaker with. And then I added some Stardust stickles to one of them, and then I added some glossy accents to the other. These are great ways that you can add little details on top of the vellum if you... if you want to, just because it's cute, but it's also a great way to kind of hide the adhesive if you need to. So that's it. These are all of the cards. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you know me and that you know that it's coming from a place of love and care for the industry. I always appreciate your guys' time. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.